Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Anatomy of Movie. Today we talk about Bad Moms, the new Mila Kunis and Kristen Bell movie. And we've got a lot to discuss, so stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who know me, I love a good comedy, and today we're talking about Bad Moms. We have Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Phil Svitek. I really wish we had a mom on the panel. We were trying to get one, a fun mom. If you guys are AfterBuzz fans, Maria Provenzano, tweet at her and let her know that you want her on the panel.
She could have been, but she's not.
But we digress.
Yeah.
Welcome to Anatomy of a Movie. We assume that you've seen the movie, so it's going to be very spoiler-filled. That's our kind of viewpoint of it. We'll talk about development, the story, editing, and so forth. But before any of that, let's start with overall impressions. You, Marisa, did you like it?
I was very excited to see this movie because, as you know, with all of our other anatomy shows, I'm a big fan of Kristen Bell. And so anything she's in, I will immediately be the first one to watch it.
I saw this before you, by the way, so you weren't the first.
Well, I was busy working. So I was excited to see this film. And, I liked it because it had heart. It was light and funny at some moments. It was relatable throughout the whole film. And then, yes, it got raunchy at some point, so it had the bad aspect. I like the fact that the idea of bad had, like a dual meaning and message in this film. And overall, I felt like this is a great film for women to see at all generations and at all ages. You don't have to be a mom to enjoy this film. I'm not a mother, but I enjoyed it.
Just be over 17.
Yes. But, I'm not a mother, but I enjoyed this film.
I like a good comedy. I like raunchy comedies. We just did Dave and Mike Need Wedding Dates. That, to me, was a fun movie. A little while ago, we did Sisters. We just did Ghostbusters. I'm a huge fan of 21 and Over, obviously the Hangover series. So I like a good comedy. And this was a little bit different than what I expected it to be in terms of what I was marketed. I thought overall, I thought there was going to kind of be like a one-night type of thing, much like 21 and Over or The Hangover, where things happen over the course of one day. Or this was, over the course of at least a couple weeks. Yeah. But, so it's just different than what I expected, but it was good. And I thought everyone did a good job, and I thought they fleshed out the characters really, really well, and they were believable.
I agree. I think we had a lot of women in this film that was driving everything, but I felt all of them were distinctly different and had the different personalities, and they brought different aspects to this film that made them very individual, and memorable. All of them, you can remember what all of them did, and that's what I enjoyed for having 6 women, pretty much spearheading this film. It was fun to watch.
Exactly. I agree with you there 100%. Now, going back before we dive into story, this was in development not too long. John Lucas and Scott Moore were set to direct this based on their script. It was going through Apatow Pictures, and Apatow was going to be sort of attached to it. Leslie Mann, she was going to be one of the actresses in it. That didn't quite work out.
I'm so glad it didn't, because that would have been a completely different film. I felt like it would have been a longer film with the same jokes drawn out for too long. What we call Apatowing it. And I'm not a big fan of Leslie Mann either, so I'm glad that it wasn't on her, but spread throughout 6 women.
And in a way, I commend what Apatow has done. They were responsible, kind of in that space. In terms of women, they've kind of brought them to a little bit some light in the comedy world. But I'm glad somebody else is also picking up that mantle, that it doesn't just have to be Apatow. Mm-hmm. You know? So, and the more that progresses, the more we can have of this stuff. We don't... Because obviously he worked on Trainwreck, and that was a great movie. But, I'm glad someone else picked up. Paramount was supposed to be the one that really picked up the ball, but it went to STX Entertainment in the end for distribution.
Yeah, and Mila Kunis said in interviews that STX gave them like a bigger budget than what they thought they were starting off with, and they gave them more creative freedom for this film, especially when it came to the writing and acting over the writing. So STX like really helped promote and gave this film the ability to do what they wanted to do,
which is great. And in terms of John Lucas and Scott Moore, I mean, they've already proven themselves. They've done the Hangover series, 21 and Over, the Change Up and whatnot. So, they have a history with comedy.
Yeah, they do.
But this was their first diving into a comedy with women.
And I like this great, where they came from, because both of these guys, John Lucas and Scott Moore, they're married and they have wives, and it was more so the genesis was that they were just watching their wives just go through their emotions every single day, and always feeling at the end of the day that like they didn't do enough, or that still worried over the idea of like, oh, was I a good parent today? Am I a bad parent? And they just watch their wives just go through all these, and they're like, maybe we could run with this kind of idea.
Yeah, no, in some sort of way, it was also their homage to them, because obviously when you work in Hollywood, you work very long hours and it's ongoing. And so, yeah, a lot of the burden did fall on the wives. And so this was kind of them making up to them.
Yeah, acknowledging.
Like, a movie for you.
Yes, acknowledging that they do work hard, and, they aren't even, they try, and their efforts are being, considered. I like that. Getting recognized.
Exactly. And they did with Secret Life of Pets, we talked about like where the writers interviewed a lot of pets and pet owners, well, not pets but pet owners. Mm-hmm. They went through the time and really sort of got to know mothers and interviewed mothers and kind of what they were going through to be able to pull out specifics.
Yeah, and because their wives and whatnot, apparently they held a lot of social gatherings and stuff, and the wives would bring their girlfriends, and they pretty much just sat and observed what the natural conversations these women would bring up about their everyday circumstances. They're like, yeah, we can pull that story, that sounds good, and pull that, and that's pretty much where the writing came from.
Circumstances and circumcisions.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is also based on another story too. So.
Yeah, and we were joking about it. How one of the best lines in the movie is when Gwendolyn is so frustrated, and then the cherry on top is her talking about Castle not being DVR'd.
I mean, that the DVR stops. I mean, it's totally relatable because that happened to me. And we work in television, and we know when it's frustrating when your favorite show just stops and you can't keep continuing watching what you love. Yeah, that's frustrating. And to add all that on the other added pressures you have, yeah, it's believable. And I laughed a lot at that.
Well, that too, and it was just in that moment, while it's funny, it also spells out a deep sadness of who Gwendolyn is. And so the fact that you can pinpoint that, because it's one thing, we're lucky enough that we get to talk about TV and movies pretty much all day. And yes, there's work that's associated with it, and it's as hard as it may be. At the end of the day, we're not in the position of these people, and so like that's their one escape.
Yeah.
And so you could see the sadness of what that really means. So to get that specificity throughout the entire movie was great to see.
Yeah, and that Castle story was based off of a true situation that happened with Christina Applegate. One day she went to the set and she was like very distraught, and they're like, oh, what's wrong? She's like, my DVR just stopped recording Castle. Can that happen? Does that happen to other people? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. It happened to me personally, so I know what that's like. The struggle is real.
You and Christina, one and the same.
We could be.
Yeah, so I think it's very relatable, and they pull out all those moments, and we talked about it before we started, but actually, sorry, I sometimes forget what we talk about off air and what we don't. But in terms of the 6 women, they're all identifiable, and that's the great part about it, because whatever perspective you come at it as a mom, you can relate to at least one of them. And sometimes you can relate to multiple moms. But that's the fun part about it, is that they are that fleshed out in terms of characters. Who would you gravitate towards most?
Well, I'm not a mother, but I definitely like the follower type. I'm not really
the follower. You're Kristen Bell.
Oh yeah, a little bit. You know, the one who's like always the yes person who just like puts their head down and does the work and gets frustrated every once in a while and hopes that someone would eventually notice and maybe want to help. I'm that kind of person.
I think I would be most like Carla.
Really? Okay.
Well, bullheaded, pushy in a good way, gets people to do stuff. Sometimes loud and obnoxious and crude. Crude and rude.
Crude and rude.
I
agree
don't
with
know.
that
If I'm being
assessment.
honest, I think I'd be the most like Carla.
I agree with that assessment.
You know, maybe I could be like a Gwendolyn, but again, there's just so much sadness in there that I don't know. I don't think I'd be, Gwendolyn exemplifies leadership, but I don't think that's me.
But I'm glad if we're going to get into Gwendolyn just a little bit, but I'm glad that she was such a terrible, horrible person. Just coming from the writing aspect, I was like, there has to be something deeper within Gwendolyn's character for her to be that uptight. There's something else going on that's making her be like this. And I'm glad that they actually delved into that. Rather than just like, no, she's just a straight up bitch.
It's kind of Mean Girls did the same thing. It's always nice to see that they do have a motive, and like I said, it's a very sad motive. And the one through line for each they're looking for recognition or some sort of validation. And obviously, while everyone else is kind of searching for that, Gwendolyn, rather than, she takes matters into her own hands and she'll just demand it and create a falsified version of it. But as we know at the end of it, that's not what brings her happiness because it's fake. It's not real.
Absolutely. And especially when we were learning the backstory that like her husband's always working and never there, feels like her work and being a leadership is the only way she can have power and control of her life. And therefore, it brings her satisfaction that she has other people that she can control rather than having like a husband who's to support and control as well. So she compensated for that.
Very much so. I mean, so much. Remember when she's storming out of the sort of bake sale and she knocks over the lady, and the lady goes, "I'm sorry, Gwendolyn."
Yeah. Help. But like the people that placate to Gwendolyn and just like goes along with her because they're just so afraid of her.
Yeah.
I found actually funny.
And to just defining what she found to be of importance, right? What I liked about it, how many times is she calling emergency PTA meetings and this and that? And as Amy gets there, she's like, "Wait, you for real? This is what the emergency is?"
Mm-hmm. The bake sale. It's a serious thing.
It is, but let's set an actual time.
Right.
And just commit that that's when we're doing it, not like emergency meeting 2 p.m. today. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah,
her priorities of what is an emergency and whatnot are a bit skewed for people, especially for her.
She's like the Real Housewife of whatever town they're in.
I don't know.
Too much time on her hands.
Outside of Chicago, apparently.
But let's just kind of backtrack real fast. Let's talk about I was going to say the title character, but she's not Amy. Regardless, she's one of our main people, and she's who we see the most change out of. What did you think of Mila Kunis / Amy?
I like Mila Kunis. I think she's great. I've watched her in years for that 70s show. To see her grow up into this type of role, I kind of got over the fact that she's a young mother because I liked how they explained like she had a child when she was 20. And therefore, she didn't really spend her 20s, so she wants to be bad now. Like, I immediately got that. Acting-wise, I mean, it's not like just the most dramatic role, but I felt like it was the most realistic. Because I've witnessed mothers who, go through the motions and do their best and put their families first before their own and always be late. And I found that very relatable. And the fact that she's slowly getting frustrated every single day, that she can't do things for her and her own self-pleasure and happiness. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this is a woman that's like, girl, she just needs a break. And like, I get that.
Yeah. I mean, the only part of it the movie that I found really over the top and unrealistic, everything else was at least grounded in reality, but the coffee shop place where she worked at, I thought was just slightly over the top.
I think, just the whole idea that businesses like this is ran by a bunch of millennials is not a smart idea.
Well, she kept being like, "Hey, I only work for you part-time. I don't actually work here."
Right.
It's like, "Oh, no, I need you to do this."
Yeah, and the fact that they kind of made fun that even she's in her young 30s, early 30s and whatnot, and that they pegged her out to be the older one, like the oldest grandpa in the room. I was like, no, that's not
part of it was
believable.
how she dressed. She kept wearing pantsuits.
Blazers and suits. But she was the most professional.
Again, but that wasn't the value of the company. Again,
Apparently
which was
not.
why it just seemed slightly unrealistic.
The coffee, though, I mean, that would probably be a fun place to just visit. Try all the coffees. Yes.
There's places like that, right?
I know. I want to go.
Like almost like a beer brewery, but for coffee. Yeah, and I thought the progression of her and the way her and Carla and Kiki came together was really well done. It seemed. Mm-hmm. It flowed with the story, and it was very much happenstance. It was a meet cute type of moment when they're all upset and they meet at this bar, and then just kind of go from there. Yeah,
I like the relationships that I felt like that was a natural formation of relationships. Also with Amy, the fact that she played opposites with Gwendolyn. She was the one who actually wanted to actively stand up to Gwendolyn when no one else wouldn't. And I like that. I was like, on top of everything else you're already doing, now you want to go up for this big position. I'm like, good for you. And that I like that. It's not that her character had a lot to grow off because she was already, pretty high. But I like the fact that she was strong enough to stand up for what she thought was right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even the part of it that I sort of did question was the divorce side of it for Amy. But even that, while I don't know. The reason I say that is I don't necessarily want to condone divorce or push towards it. But as they find out in the therapist's office, they're not meant for each other.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of divorce either, but it happens, and I found that very realistic. And the fact that they got married so young, also very, very realistic.
Hopefully that's a lesson.
Yeah. Could be a lesson.
I can only imagine some 22-year-old mom watching it. It's like, oh, shit.
But, that I found that whole therapy session with Wanda Sykes was pretty funny. They're like, yeah, there's no fixing this issue you guys have going on.
Yeah. So I thought they pulled, and that is a realistic thing. Again, just all these things that moms and wives actually deal with. So, and to show that side of it too, in a realistic and fleshed out sort of way, as much as Wanda Sykes can be realistic. And
she could be over the top too in roles, but I thought she was pretty funny.
Oh, that was a great scene.
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic, and a great cameo from her.
And I liked. Right, that we keep talking about the six, but what I liked is that they directly mirror each other, and in terms of there's a leader, there's kind of Carla's very much a pusher, so you don't necessarily get that from Stacy, Jada Pinkett's character.
Yeah, this is what we call the leader, follower, and wannabe trope.
Yeah, well, poor Vicky, she's kind of the bridge to all of it, where she's like, I like that, but can't we just be together?
The wannabe. I liked it because, yes, there was 3 on one side and 3 on the other, and but they all were still very different, and I feel that kind of storyline. I don't know. I relate to it because, just go back a little bit. In high school, I was part of a play that we were literally called Leader, Follower, and Wannabe. And I was the follower character. So, I know that mentality of there's always someone that you want to aspire to is always leading everything. And then there's the follower who's always, agreeing with everything you go through. But sometimes are also conflicted, but they still go along with it. And then the wannabe who doesn't really fit in, but is still there. And this film had that in 2 different ways.
Yeah, Vicky was very much that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why do we still hang out with you?
I mean, and what I liked about it's also relatable to guys in the sense that there's always that one friend that everyone just bags on, and you hang out with them, but because that's the fun is that you get to just any frustrations you have, you just get to kind of take it out on them and just be like, well, you're so stupid.
Yeah.
You're this. Or why, whatever. And you know why you hang out with them? It's because it makes you feel like you're better than you actually are.
Exactly. But, like, you keep them around even though you don't want to, but you still keep them around in your circle.
Yes, indeed. Now, I'll let you have your moment to talk about Jay Hernandez, a.k.a. Jesse, the hot widower.
Yes. Okay, I've always been a fan of Jay Hernandez. Plus, he's gorgeous. But I loved him in Crazy Beautiful, and I think that was probably the first film I really recognized him.
Everyone got to know him in that.
Oh, so good, Swoon. But I think he did a really, out of all the estrogen that this film definitely has, I thought he really brought some macho into this film to have to be a nice balance towards Amy. And especially, she was having problems with her own husband. And it's just...
He was like a hillbilly.
Something...
Like, who the hell was that guy?
Yeah, he really was. But it was fun to have, Jesse come into the picture and, actually help kind of keep Amy a little bit sane. And also just be a companion towards her. I was all for it.
I did like the fact that they took the women to such a interesting world, and then the guys are on the other side of it, just not fully understanding it. I can think of the soccer coach where he's like, "What is wrong with you, Gwendolyn?"
Right. It's like, no, I'm just working.
Yeah. Can't you just leave me alone? So I did like that side of it, and yeah, where Jesse is able to kind of bring Amy out of her funk, and then you have because Amy's husband is just completely detached from the world of Amy. So much he's been 10 months he's been cheating. Well,
Yeah.
not cheating, but just jerk off cheating.
Yeah, but that's still emotionally cheating. I liked how Jesse, also because we learn immediately that his character is a widower, so he has that parental connection to these women, and I like that he comes pretty much from the same place of Amy's kind of now a single mom too, going through all this, and he's gone through all this, and he comes from a relatable perspective to help her along this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it made for a crazy party. Which I love the fact that it's Martha Stewart that is the compelling factor of any party.
I laughed. I was like, well, if Martha Stewart is at your party, you immediately win.
What if you get Oprah? Who wins, Martha Stewart or Oprah?
Probably Oprah.
All right, so then Oprah
But
trumps.
Martha Stewart's better known for the cooking. So.
And she's handing out the goods.
And the Jell-O shots. I was like, I'd have a Jell-O shot from Martha Stewart, thank you.
Yeah, but Oprah is known for, and you get a cookie, and you get a cookie, and you get a cookie.
Very true. Oprah would buy the Jell-O shots, and it would be gold. But I like the cameo with Martha Stewart, and because the fact that she started off at Gwendolyn's party and then move over to Amy's was even better.
Who wouldn't want to stay at my Martha Stewart? And
Right.
Again, the ultimate joke of it all is they party so crazy, but by 11 p.m.
Everyone's out.
Yeah, I did appreciate that part of it. Any other? What are some of the most fun moments that you enjoyed in the movie?
Well, obviously the supermarket scene was
Okay.
hysterical to watch. I'm not sure about you, but watching it, it's probably one of the most mundane tasks you can do. Even though, I enjoy grocery stores. I worked in a grocery store for 5 years, so, I actually enjoy grocery store shopping. But the way that the women set up, they're like, oh, I have to shop, it's something that it's just an added chore that they hate doing every single day. But they had so much fun doing the most stupid things,
making
opening
White
cereal
Russians.
boxes. Yeah, White Russians and making out with store clerks and whatnot. I thought it was super hysterical. And the fact that, there was the partying, opening up and destroying everything, and then they took a moment to stop in it and cuddle over this baby. It was such a mom moment. I'm like, oh, and then they get back into it. I thought it was pretty well done.
I like that scene too, and they talked about how it was tough to figure out the right store to do it because, most places don't want you actually shooting in there, especially if you're just going to be doing just basically having a food fight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, shoot. It sucks when things get destroyed in a supermarket because someone does have to clean it up, trust me.
Clean up on an aisle.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone.
I've actually done that a few times. Gone over the PA system to call up cleanup. So that's a real thing. But also the store that they were in, that it wasn't a 24-hour store, so it had a definitive amount of time to work, and they can only film at night. So their turnaround wasn't that much between the time that they had to close and shoot to the time they had to open again for the stock people to restock all the shelves. And so that's why I believe they only had like a 4 hours to film that superstore scene.
Well, the good news is you can just kind of have fun with it, and it's a montage, so it doesn't quite have to be linear or make sense. You just shoot them and cut it however you want.
Absolutely, and they said for filming of the supermarket scene that they purposely put it in slow motion to make it interesting, like more funny, more so, because it's just eating cereal that's kind of boring at a regular pace, but if you put it in slow motion and you watch people like crash into boxes and whatnot, it's funnier when it's slow motion.
That, and they picked a great song. It's the one we opened up.
Concerned if their child believable.
And that was great to see too. I'm joking about doesn't know how to kind of find a way through life. Doesn't know how to
do
navigate
things on their own.
So my joke is, this is her. So my joke is with her, I'll drive out in the middle of nowhere, 7 hours away, and I'll say, "Get out and find your way home." Mm-hmm. And that may seem tough, but like that sometimes that's the type of education people need, and yeah, it's very relatable. And it sucks that we unfortunately don't have a mom on this panel.
I know,
but we had for one.
But we had good mothers. You two, you and I, we had good mothers that raised us right.
It's because my mom was like, "You fend for yourself."
Exactly.
I ain't dealing with your problems. I'll help you. You're going to do your homework and stuff like that, and I'll cook for you, but you ain't.
See, my mom always cooked for me, therefore I never really properly learned how to cook. But other than that, I think I
know how to cook
right.
for myself, is what I'll say.
Yeah, same here.
And if I really want to, I can make a good meal. But, so let's talk about the editing style of it, right? Emma Hickox and James Thomas, who have done a lot of comedies. Brothers Grimsby, most recently, Muppets Most Wanted, Hot Tub Time Machine, and then some of the more serious, A Walk to Remember, Miracles from Heaven. So a kind of weird dichotomy between the two.
It's an interesting balance too. You got the romantic side movies with Emma, and then the comedy side with James, and I think that's the perfect marriage of Bad Moms. So you had the female-driven movies compared to the comedy. And also, these two have worked together for years and whatnot on a lot of films. And they actually have a lot of experience in music video editing. Therefore, the montages, like the party scene and the supermarket scenes, are generally edited to the beat of whatever song that they used. And it felt like a very music video type of, if you isolate that and cut it out of the film, they're very standalone scenes by themselves, which are also very entertaining.
Are you gonna watch the party scene over and over on repeat as you pregame for any weekend?
Not the party scene, but the supermarket scene I've actually seen a few times.
Okay. Yeah, and to that, obviously there's a ton of music in this, very recognizable music, and I like the different. You can go from Demi Lovato, Iconopop, and then to Foreigner. With I Want to Know What Love Is, when Gwendolyn is just bawling her eyes out in the car, and it's just so recognizable, and you're like, poor woman.
Aww.
And that's why hence it even just musically it punches up that castle joke all the more.
She's just a sad person.
It's on the nose. I want to know what love is.
Because she probably doesn't have real love in her life. That's the sad part. I liked the music every time it came on, because I remember watching this film, I was like, wow, that's a very notable song right now. And I felt like the music made this movie very timely, which also maybe hindered it, but not. But the soundtrack, there wasn't really any orchestral score underneath it. It was just like more poppy, recognizable songs.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with comedies, I think comedies are much more easy to consume, and unlike with The Revenant, right? Let's just take a movie like that. You're not necessarily gonna revisit it that much.
No.
You know what I mean? And so it needs to be it's kind of more consumed in the moment, and that's it. Because I don't know, that's just the way I view comedies. They don't necessarily have a shelf life in that respect, but also the way they transcend to me is not just by the music. I think a movie like this does have legs because it's a good movie, and then the music's just the music. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think, again, years from now or whatever, like, if you hear it, so be it. That's just, you know, much in the same way, like, you and I like Heavyweights. Yeah, it's got very different music, and at this time, like, it's very dated music, but that doesn't negate the movie.
No, absolutely not.
So I would put too much stock in the music hindering this in terms of whether or not it achieves its greatness.
It's very, you know, like light music, light fun music.
How would you compare this to a movie like Sisters or Bridesmaids, or one that's kind of male-driven, 21 and over, or even just recently Ghostbusters?
I felt like all those movies had, you know, timey music in it as well.
Well, not in terms of music, just story and characters.
Stories?
Yeah, forget music.
I feel like Bad Moms, there was good humanistic, realistic element to it that people can find. They had their moments of craziness, which I feel a lot of us in real life, we can have our one crazy night and we're like, oh man, that was so much fun. And then, but it always got back to reality, and I enjoyed that. For Bridesmaids, which was like supposed to be over the top raunchy, oh my god, I can't believe this actually happened within their stories. I found it was too over the top where it wasn't realistic. Whereas the Bad Moms in here, they got one crazy night, and I'm like, yeah, anyone could do that.
Yeah, and, you know, all the main actresses are moms too, and they did say like that these guys, even though they're guys, they nailed the writing so much so even with the circumcision scene. You know, because they said like women talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I know, I believe it, and because I mean, and also relatable to Amy's story. She's only been with one guy. What if that did happen? She wouldn't know what to do. No. But I think that was also Kathryn Hahn's just comedy of her talents, and she just went with that scene. It was already written, but she just ad-libbed more on top of that joke, and it just became a running thing of like 2-minute joke of what do you do when you face an uncircumcised penis.
Yes, well,
that's
we got
exactly
that.
what you do.
We got that answer.
Yeah.
So
poor Kristen Bell, she had to become a penis.
She what?
She was the penis in that example. Like, I'm never wearing this sweater again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awkward, but still funny.
But, you know, so, because we're used to seeing guys in that role and kind of talking about these things, and, you know, between the Geppetto with the bra and this and that, and, you know, it brought that side to it that women do talk about this stuff. Again, maybe not to the full extent that most guys do, but that doesn't mean they don't talk about it.
It's very true.
I would compare this movie a lot to Sisters, although Sisters I think was a little bit more forgettable. This one I think might have more legs than Sisters, but we'll see.
I think so too. I think Sisters was a fun, that was an over-the-top kind of film too. It had its fun moments, but the whole overall story isn't as memorable as Bad Moms was.
Yeah, because that was just like two girls that just wanted to have one last party and reconnect.
Just
and
fun.
Sweet, but not, you know, I thought this cut deeper.
Yeah.
So much so that, I mean, they made a whole campaign of this, like, moms go out and see this movie, and a lot of moms went together. Like, this was mom's night out, was seeing this movie, which I thought is brilliant marketing.
It's very smart. And STX also had another promotional event too, where, you know, they definitely utilized the social media game. And on Twitter, they started something which was called hashtag Bad Mom Moments, where people can send in their photos and little mini blurbs of what their stories were of their bad parenting moments where they thought they were bad moms. And people were sending in photos like, there was one time I left my kid at a playground and he was eating a bunch of sand, stuff like that. And it's pretty fun, but also realistic because these are from real women in the world sharing their stories. So it's not just these women in the film, but it happens every day.
Yeah, part of it brings you into that community, and then the other side of it kind of perhaps horrifies you of like, oh my God,
Right.
this is what really goes on.
Yeah, I mean, Mila Kunis shared a story where she vowed to never, like, tell us, but she did. And that there was one day her child, that she didn't fully properly buckle her child in the child's care seat properly. And she felt like she was a bad mother. She's like, oh my God, I did that. And then her husband, Ashton Kutcher, did the exact same thing like the next day. So it's not just for women, but guys do it too.
Well, we're not here to talk about the guys, okay?
It's true, but I'm saying that just like even they have done it because all 6 of these women are mothers in real life, and they've all shared their bad moments.
Yeah, but it is that frightening, to see how you would mess it up. We'll get into the box office numbers, but it was interesting. There's a group of 50 moms, right? And this is why, to me, like, that campaign was successful of bring out moms to go see this movie. 50 moms and their kids went out to see this movie in somewhere, I think it might have been Florida. Actually, yeah, it was Florida. And 2 moms had toddlers, and they were not allowed to see the movie. And so most of the women, I can't say all the moms, but most of the women took a stance, and they're like, we're not going to go see this movie then at this theater.
Good for them.
But if you're at that theater, like, really, you got 50 moms. That basically is the entirety of the theater.
Audience, yeah.
Just let them watch. They were all fine with it. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, to reject those people who had toddlers, it's like, that's the whole message of the movie. These are mothers.
Yeah.
Like, and they're bringing their child with, and sometimes they have to.
Like, if you brought your kid to Jason Bourne or, like, Hostel, let's just say, then I'd be like, what the hell? Like, you are a bad
then
mom.
That's a bad mom moment.
But you and your girlfriends go out and you bring your kids because you don't have, like, okay, fine.
Couldn't get a babysitter.
And, like, you have to kind of, what I'm saying is you have to contextualize it. If you're at that theater, and they just didn't, and it ended up being a pretty big story.
Well, did they? Because I don't really know the whole story. Were they allowed into the theater, or
they were not allowed into the theater? They got refunded and whatnot, but they're just like, we can't let toddlers into an R-rated movie. Like, well, it's come on.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously, the mom, like, just let the mom be the mom.
Yeah. If 21-year-olds can let other kids older than toddler age into R-rated movies, then mothers can bring their own child and their own children into bad moms.
It's just so it was an interesting story, but again, it speaks to the success of it. Moms are seeing this in droves.
It's good. It's good. It's definitely geared towards that demographic.
So much so that that they've made a total of $35 million. Opening weekend, $23 million, which, for a comedy, admirable. Yeah, the budget was $20 million.
Yeah.
So they're bound to make their money back.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's good between like a bunch of all these summer movies that's being sequels or comic book movies and whatnot. That like this is just a simple movie.
That's for women. It's a different
kind
demographic.
Of programming. It's kind of programming that it's obviously working for them.
Yeah, like a mom is not going to want to see X-Men and Marvel and then Jason Bourne. It's like, okay, enough. What about me?
Yeah.
And this is that perfect comedy.
Yeah. So good for this. And I think this film definitely has a rewatchability factor.
Very much so. And, it gets a better score than Jason Bourne is what I'll say. On Rotten Tomatoes, they give it a 64, which for comedy, like most comedies that we do here on Anatomy, like they come in at like 9%, 23%,
20, yeah.
40% if we're lucky. But so for this to get a 64%, that's really good. And
it's pretty
you
high.
know what I like is more and more recently, these movies are also being judged kind of just on their own merit. We don't have to be like, oh, well, just because it's an all-female-driven movie, then we have to give it a couple of bonus points just for that. It's like, no, we can judge it just, is it a good movie or is it a bad movie?
No, I enjoyed it because I felt like this film had a lot of balance of comedy. There was some slapstick comedy in there where when it came to the bra and being knocked over by one of those soccer players, so there's a physical aspect to it. And then also just the humor, intelligent jokes that Kristen Bell and Kathryn Hahn, riff-raffed on their own. And so there was comedy in all different forms in this film.
I agree. Would you want a sequel to Bad Moms?
I don't know if it warrants for a sequel because we had these women, they overcame their, disappointments and what was frustrating them, and they all kind of grew along with their husbands that they were
But maybe it could be a new cast and it'd be called Badder Moms.
But who would you cast for Badder Moms?
I don't know, something different.
The thing is, I liked these 6 women that they casted that I wouldn't want to see another complete different group
I don't know.
to play Bad Moms.
I don't necessarily want to see this be franchised because that keeps happening.
Bad Moms 2, Bad Daughters.
But what I commend them, it's a great title, Bad Moms, simple and to the point. You know 100% what you're getting into. Zach says Bad Moms 2, Bad Daughters.
Oh.
I mean, in some sense that could be funny.
Well, the daughters would have to, grow up a little bit because all these kids were, grade school levels. So,
wow.
Maybe in a couple years. But, I mean, if they came out with a sequel, I'd probably watch it. But the fact that the 3 women, Mila and Kathryn and Kristen, their characters with their significant others, they kind of changed their ways too. He got the divorce with Mila's got the divorce with the guy, so he's out of the picture. But you have Jay, and you have Jesse. But then even Kristen Bell's character, her man, was starting to not actually help her out. So
I'll see. Well, I like Zach's suggestion too. Bad grandmothers, because it's natural progression. Once after you've been a mom and your kids have kids. Then you're like, well, I'm not actually need to do any parenting with the grandchild, so I'm just going to spoil the crap out of them. And does that make you a bad grandmother? That could be fun to play with. I don't know. We'll see.
They tried doing, what was it, Bad Grandpa and all that.
Well, that was just a different type. That's not along the same premises of this.
Yeah, but, I mean, Bad Grandmothers, if there was, the older generation that was trying to be bad, which is so ironic right now because I feel that current generation
Bad Moms meets Grumpy Old Men.
Bad, yes. But
there you go.
I would totally watch that.
There you go. See, I just came up with a great movie.
There you go.
All right. That about wraps it up for us. If there's anything that you guys would like to discuss further, just ask us, tell us in the comments section. We'll chit-chat there. So, yeah. And in the meantime, also, you can tweet at Marisa or interact with her at
Serafini TV.
That's right. And at the Popcorn Talk here. Thank you guys for joining us. We've done tons of other movies. So some of the ones I mentioned, Sisters, Ghostbusters. I believe we did 21 and Over, but I forget. So definitely check those out in the coming weeks. We're going to be doing Suicide Squad, Nerve, Sausage Party, WAG, War Dogs. That's another comedy. So a lot of comedies coming up, actually. So that's, I love comedy. Dave and Mike Need Wedding Dates. We've done those. So definitely check those out. We just recently did Jason Bourne, if you also saw that. Yeah, that's it for us. We'll see you hopefully next time on another Anatomy of a Movie.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.